Hello and welcome to another episode of John's Hair after writing 3 essays in as many days. I've been a little room bound, but tomorrow I'm going to go get to that pool and tidy myself up a bit. Give myself an old shave. But we're down to 13 days and I'm getting excited. So let's continue with The Little Prince. Chapter 3. It took me a long time to learn where he came from. The Little Prince, who asked me so many questions, never seemed to hear the ones I asked him. It was from words dropped by chance that little by little everything was revealed to me. The first time he saw an airplane, for instance, I shall not draw my airplane, that would be too much complicated for me. He asked me, "What is that object?" "That is not an object, it flies, it is an airplane, it is my airplane." And I was proud to have him learn that I could fly. He cried out then, "What? You dropped down from the sky?" "Yes," I answered modestly. "Oh, that's funny." And the Little Prince broke into a lovely peal of laughter which irritated me very much. I like my misfortunes to be taken seriously. Then he added, "So you, too, come from the sky. Which is your planet?" At that moment I caught a gleam of light in the impenetrable mystery of his presence, and I demanded abruptly, "Do you come from another planet?" But he did not reply. He tossed his head gently without taking his eyes from my plane. It is true that on that you can't have come from very far away." And he sank into reverie, which lasted a long time. Then, taking my sheep out of his pocket, he buried himself in contemplation of his treasure. You can imagine how my curiosity was aroused by this half-coincidence about the other planets. I made a great effort, therefore, to find out more on this subject. "My little man, where do you come from? What is this where I live, and of what you speak? Where do you want to take your sheep?" After a reflective silence, he answered, "The thing that is so good about the box you have given me is that at night he can use it as a house." "That is so, and if you are good, I will give you a string too, so that you can tie him during the day, and a post to tie him to." But the Little Prince seemed shocked by this offer. "Tie him? What a queer idea!" "But if you don't tie him," I said, "he will wander off somewhere and get lost." My friend again broke into peals of laughter. "But where do you think he would go?" "Anywhere straight ahead of him." The Little Prince said earnestly, "That doesn't matter. Where I live, everything is so small." And perhaps with a hint of sadness, he added, "Straight ahead of him, nobody can go very far." And here's here's a picture of the Little Prince and his asteroid. Chapter 4. I had thus learned the second fact of great importance. This was the planet the Little Prince came from, was scarcely any larger than a house. But that did not really surprise me. I knew very well that in addition to the great planets such as Earth, Jupiter, Mars, and Venus, to which we have given names, there are also hundreds of others. Some of which are so small that one has a hard time seeing them through the telescope. When an astronomer discovers one of these, he does not give it a name, but only a number. He might call it, for example, Asteroid 325. I have serious reason to believe that the planet from which the Little Prince came from is asteroid known as B612. The asteroid was only once seen through a telescope. That was by a Turkish astronomer in 1909. On making his discovery, the astronomer had presented it to the International Astronomical Congress in great demonstration. But he was in Turkish costume, so nobody would believe what he said. Grown-ups are like that. Here he is discovering it. And here he is in Turkish costume. Fortunately, however, for the reputation of asteroid B612, a Turkish dictator made a law that his subjects, under pain of death, should change to European costume. So, in 1912, the astronomer gave his demonstration all over again, dressed with impressive style and elegance, and this time everybody accepted his report. If I have told you these details about asteroid and made note of its number for you, it's on account of the grown-ups and their ways. Grown-ups love figures. When you tell them that you have made a new friend, they never ask you any questions about essential matters. They never say, "What does his voice sound like? What games does he love best? Does he collect butterflies?" Indeed, they demand, "How old is he? How many brothers has he? How much does he weigh? How much money does his father make?" Only from those figures do they think they have learned anything about him. But if you were to say to the grown-ups, "I saw a beautiful house made of rosy brick with geraniums in the windows and doves on the roof," they would not be able to get any idea of the house at all. You would have to say to them, "I saw a house that cost $20,000. Then they would exclaim, "Oh, what a pretty house that is." Published in 1943. It's a good time for the housing market. Just so, you might say to them, the proof that the little prince existed is that he was charming, and he laughed, and that he was looking for sheep. If anybody wants a sheep, what is proof that he exists? And what good would it do to tell them that? They would shrug their shoulders and treat you like a child. But if you said to them, humanity came from his asteroid B612, they would be quite convinced and leave you in peace for their questions. They're like that, unless taught hold it against them. Children should always show great forbearance towards grown-up people. But certainly for us, who understand life, figures are a matter of indifference. I should have liked to begin the story in a fashion of the fairy tales. I should like to have said, once upon a time there was a little prince who lived on a planet that was scarcely bigger than himself, and who had need of sheep. To those who understand life, that would have given much greater air of truth to the story. For I do not want anyone to read my book carelessly. I have suffered too much grief in sitting down these memories. 6 years have already passed since my friend went away from me with his sheep, and if I try to describe him here, it is to make sure that I shall not forget him. To forget a friend is sad. Not everyone has a friend, and if I forget him, I may become like the grown-ups who are no longer interested in anything but figures. It is for that purpose, again, that I have brought a box of paints and pencils. It is hard to take up drawing again at my age when I have never made any pictures except those of boa constrictors from the outside and boa constrictors from the inside since I was 6. I shall certainly try to make my portraits as true to life as possible, but I am not all sure of success. One drawing goes along all right, and another has no resemblance to its subject. I make some errors, too, in the little prince's height. In one place he is too tall and another too short. And I feel some doubts about the colour of his costume, so I fumble along as best I can, now good, now bad, and I hope generally fair to middling. In certain more important details I shall make mistakes also. But that is something that will not be my fault. My friend never explained anything to me. He thought perhaps I was like him. But I, alas, do not know how to see a sheep through walls of a box. Perhaps I am a little like the grown-ups. I have had to grow old. We'll continue this later. I don't want to breeze through this. I want to make this last. Because we're doing at least 2 chapters a day, and that should get us right to the end, right when I come home. But I want to tell you what I did today. No, I didn't do anything. I mean, I worked on an essay all day, but that's not the point. One exam out of the way. I saw my nephew for the first time in 7 years. And it was a little odd. He was a nephew I told you I held up in my hands and walked around. He was a little baby. And I must have been 13, and he was less than a year old. Anyways, I saw him for the first time, really, as a cognizant human being, ever. And it was on Skype, and his mother, my cousin Catherine. And I suppose that makes me some sort of uncle. Uncle once removed, I'm not sure, but Uncle Badger has a nice ring to it. Could be a bar's name or a pub, but he and I, it was kind of neat. He showed up on screen, and he looked a lot like he did when he was a little kid. But one thing I noticed is he had my copy of Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. And I said, "What are you doing with that?" And he looked at me, and then he explained how he was having trouble with it, and then requested I help him get the sword back from the large bird that took it. And that made me smile. That made me smile a lot. Because I'd also had that same problem when I was playing that game growing up. How'd you get it back from the bird? I told him I remembered exactly how to do it all the years later, so I gave him explicit instructions on the time and location to go and complete that. But it was very odd. I felt like I was looking into a Little John mirror. It also was a little concerning because I was looking into a Little John mirror and not particularly happy with what I was seeing. I thought, you shouldn't spend so much time on that. You should go up to the park. Although Dad took him to the pool, which was wonderful. I don't know, it was just very odd to see that. A reflection that was both lovable, curious, and I think a little misguided. But then again, he's 7, right? I can't hold anything against him, and I don't think I would ever hold anything... I don't think you should ever hold anything against 7-year-olds. I just wish I'd done things differently at times. Hopefully he'll wise up. That sword always was hard to get from the bird. It'd take your bottle and it'd take your money, too. Because in order to get the sword back, you had to pay a substantial amount, and the only way to get that kind of money was from killing that bird, but you couldn't kill the bird if you didn't have the sword. It was an awful catch-22. But I digress. I hope you're having a fantastic time at the cycling camp. And I know you're doing wonderfully, you always do. Always. I'm home in... Much too late to be doing math? 13 days, yes. Just making, well, I was kind of hoping it was 12, but it'll be 12 days. It's just 2 6s. I love you, Christy. Oh, let's make it through the last little bit. And I will be home before you know it. So sleep well, keep calm, Fandalama, carry on. I love you, Christy, and I'll be home soon. Good night. I love you.